finally, God confronts Jonah. And now he confronts him with words, setting up the point that he intends to make, which I believe is the primary point of this prophecy, which is why I've entitled the message the way I have. The question in verse 9 differs from verse 4. In verse 9, God said to Jonah. In verse 4, God said, "Is it right for you to be angry?" In verse 9, God says, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" God is dealing with Jonah. In verse 4, the focus was upon his reaction to God's dealing with Nineveh. He wasn't happy. He didn't think God should be doing that. And the right answer to God's question in verse 4 would have been no. There was no answer recorded. No, it was not right for Jonah to be angry at God's mercy and grace to Nineveh. It was right for God to show salvation is of the Lord. It was right for God to show mercy to whom He will. It was right for you to rejoice in God showing mercy, mercy triumphing over judgment, right? But in verse 9, it's not Nineveh, it's the plant. It's Jonah's attitude and Jonah's response to the removal of the plant. The plant came and the plant went away. The plant was God's mercy. The plant was God's grace demonstrated to Jonah. And God destroyed the plant and ordered what at least was an expression of judgment. And it was a kind of relenting of grace to Jonah. One who relents from doing harm. But here it is God relenting from grace, relenting from mercy. He had caused a plant to grow, a covering, a shade, and then He had caused that shade to wither. He had taken away what He gave. I say a kind of relenting of His grace to Jonah. The very thing Jonah was hoping for Nineveh. And the very thing that Jonah was hoping for Nineveh grieved him to death in reference to himself. I think that Jonah's answer in verse 9 is truer than it may initially seem. When Jonah says, yes, it is right for me to be angry even to death. Especially if I'm right in the way that I'm expressing this and viewing this. Jonah wanted God to do to Nineveh exactly what had happened to him. Reverse the mercy, show judgment. God took away the plant. Judgment triumphed over mercy. Yes, I do right to be angry about that. And I believe that there's a correctness in that. There's a sense in which Jonah was right in being angry at that reversal. It's like God showing mercy, God showing kindness, God showing grace, and then pulling the rug out from under you and saying, not really, not really. But what about Nineveh? God determined to show mercy to this repentant city, to Nineveh. Jonah wants God, in essence, to renege, to pull the rug out. Just kidding. Jonah, does it make sense to be angry about a plant and yet want judgment upon these people? Jonah, there's various ways of looking at this, but Jonah clearly was more concerned about a plant that was really toward him than he was about a people that God wanted to demonstrate mercy to. Something was wrong in Jonah's thinking. And so the Lord now makes his point by contrasting himself with Jonah in verses 10 and 11. He says, but the Lord said, you have had pity on the plant. Verse 11, should I not pity Nineveh? You see there's a contrast here? Jonah had pity on a plant shading only himself, and yet had no pity on a city of people that God wanted to shade from his own judgment with his mercy and grace.